Hey, Naperville, how's it going? Hey, do you want to keep your home in top condition so that when it's your time to sell, you're going to get the top dollar? We're going to talk about that and more on this week's edition of the Naperville Real Estate Weekly Market Update. Owning a home in Naperville is about living a great life today and investing in a secure tomorrow. On this show, we're going to give you the tools to do both. Welcome to the Naperville Real Estate Weekly Market Update. Welcome back to the Naperville Real Estate Weekly Market Update. I am Chris Grano with Keller Williams. Alongside me is Todd Gosden with Compass Mortgage. We're your hosts. Todd, how you doing today, man?
I am doing great. Thank you very much for asking. It's great. It's hard to believe we're almost to 4th of July, but here we go. Christmas is 6 months away.
Oh, it's unbelievable, man. It's like I look down at the calendar and half a year's gone by. So I am back and relaxed and rested from a couple days down in sunny Florida. So I'm excited to be back here.
Very nice.
You might not be able to tell with my pasty skin here, but I got a little tan.
Yeah, we can see it. Yeah, you're very tan.
That's right. So this week we're going to talk, of course, about the numbers here in Naperville. And then Todd and I thought we'd take this opportunity halfway through the year. Let's talk about some ways to keep that home in top condition and just make sure that you're protecting your investment, right? This podcast is about understanding what's happening in the market and protecting your long-term investment. And, in between the time when you're a home buyer and a home seller, you're a home owner and you've got some things to do, right, Todd? And I know, hey, you were talking to me about flower arrangements earlier, and there's all kinds of things you can do, but there are some essentials really. And we'll hit on those in just a second here. So let's take a look at this week's numbers. And Todd, it's been a crazy year. I think we're starting to see some changes in the market as we head towards the summer. Before I kind of look at the inventory, what kind of insight have you seen, just in talking to home buyers over the last few weeks here?
Well, I think that it's all about perspective, right? So many of the headlines are talking about, is this Armageddon? Is this essentially the downturn of what's going on in the market? Is this going to be a repeat of what happened 15 years ago? The answer is no to all that. The reality in this is pure and simple that applications, contracts are down over the last 3 months, but we're still up over 44% from last year. There's no slowing of the market right now. There's nothing going on other than people are taking a break. They're taking some vacations that they haven't been able to capitalize on in the last couple of years. Just lots of great things are happening. People are getting out and being people again rather than being in a house all day long. So I think that what you perceive to see in the marketplace and what you're being told is not a reality. The reality is we are a little soft right now. The reality is things have slowed down a little bit. Interest rates are still very, very low. Inventory is starting to climb. Lots of good things are going to be happening here over the next 6 months. So people stay tuned.
Yeah, I think the numbers beguile us a little bit sometimes because there is also what's happening on the ground that you and I are seeing in conversations that we're having with folks and just in our daily activities. And I can tell you that some listings, where listings were getting 60, 70 showings in a weekend, maybe a month or two ago, that's not really happening as much anymore.
Nope, not at all.
Seeing that slow down, like you said, people are going, like I just did, on vacation. Kids are out of school now. And I think we are seeing a little bit of a normalization. Now, you've got the same thing where we also have a few less homes coming to market because same reason. Some sellers are headed out of town too. So when we look at the numbers, it may kind of look like things are flat, but I think when this summer comes to an end, I think we are going to see, just as you've talked about, that softening happen. The inventory will wind up being higher. And I think we're going to see less craziness in the activities. And I think part of it has been a pushback too, is that some buyers now who maybe don't have to move or weren't in the same position as some folks earlier in the year are going, okay,
yeah,
I'm not willing to cut off my right arm and give it for this house. So we're going to.
Yeah, I just think there's the slowdowns don't mean a change in opportunity. Sometimes they mean more opportunity.
Yes.
Right.
Yes,
and I think that we have to stay focused on not what people are writing, but what we're seeing is truth of what's going on in the market. And right now is just a bit of a slowdown. But when you're still at 44% over last year and people are still looking to be purchasing, there is no shortage of people wanting to buy homes.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Right.
So, All right, let's talk about the numbers this week. So we've got 118 new listings. So actually, still really good activity. A little bit down for the last few weeks. Kind of taking us back to levels from mid-May as far as new listings in Naperville, but not far off the mark of where we've been. 113 homes under contract. That number's up actually over the last few weeks. So still really good activity the last week here in Naperville, and 78 closings. So then when we kind of take a look at the inventory, again, largely unchanged as far as the pace, right? So I think what we've seen is this rise and fall as homes come to market. People put them under contract. So there are still lots of homes coming to market, and we've still seen active buyers. So really not a whole lot of change in the last 2 or 3 weeks, just from a pure numbers perspective. But again, I think what we're seeing on the ground level, as we pointed out, Todd, are things that are going to change and be an impact on the market here in the next few months as we get later in the summer. So let's talk really quickly about some things to keep keep the value of your home high. And we've talked in the past about things like renovations, which, ultimately are going to be a major source of keeping your equity where you want it to be. When I talk to home sellers, I'm sure Todd, because you have these conversations with folks who are buying and selling. And I know because you've asked me, okay, well, hey, Chris, Bill and Susie said that they're working with you to sell their house, and I'm going to help finance their purchase on their next one. Can you give me an idea of the equity they're going to be bringing out of that sale so we know what they have at their disposal, right? Because that's a big part of that equation, correct?
Yes, absolutely. Well, I mean, yeah, I think that, when you're speaking of the home renovation part of this, right?
The home renovation and maintenance. So we're going to get into maintenance, but I think
Okay.
what's important is just keeping that equity high, because I'm sure you're counseling folks that, especially when it's a purchase, when you're going to be buying and selling, the more equity you can roll into that next purchase, that's going to make you all that more attractive as a buyer, right?
Well, absolutely. I mean, yeah. I mean, obviously, if you're looking at someone and they're putting in an offer, equity position matters for sure.
Yeah.
And number two is the reason we buy homes is to take pride in fixing them up and preparing them for a day that they will sell. Otherwise, we wouldn't spend the money in updating our houses, right?
Right.
It's because we're trying to find value. It's a great investment. It allows us to have leverage to buy that next home that may be a change in our lives or where we want to be, right? Yeah. And I think that's the way we have to look at it.
Absolutely. And I use this analogy a lot because I think it's a little bit more relatable. I compare homes to cars, and now obviously they're not exactly the same thing, right? A home is typically an appreciating asset, a car is a depreciating asset, but the ways in which they're similar is that they are two of the bigger assets that we typically have in our lives, at least physical assets, right? And we interact with our car every day. And so what do? Every few months you get the oil changed, right? Every few months you detail it, perhaps, just to keep it clean. You're vacuuming it out, hopefully on a weekly, bi-weekly basis, getting it washed, whatever is necessary, changing the brake pads, because if you don't, what happens to your car? It falls apart.
Yeah,
right. And
exactly.
And then say you were to go sell it. Well, a car with all brakes needed done, and bald tires, and and a messy interior, that's going to sell for a lot less than a car that's got everything to maintain the way it needs to be.
Yeah, sure.
Let's talk about your home. I mean, there's updating, right? And that's going to keep you at pace with the folks in the area, keep you, at pace with the competition that has been updating. But then there's the maintenance issues. And I can tell you, just from as the standpoint of a homeowner, not even as a real estate agent, I sometimes go, wow, it has been years since I've drained my hot water tank, right? It's been months since I've changed my furnace air filter. And these things not only cost you money as a homeowner, but then what I can tell you is, when you get to the point when you want to sell, because I know a lot of folks listen to this podcast, watch it because they're either buying or selling, a home that has been neglected for years and years and years on these maintenance issues is going to sell for a lot less. It's hard to put a dollar figure on some of these things, but when a buyer walks through the door and sees a dirty home, steps outside, sees gutters that are clogged, goes into the basement, sees, water markings around the furnace and things like that, they're going to have questions, and it's going to impact whether they choose to buy your house at all, and certainly the offer that they're going to give you. So I'm going to just talk about a couple of quick things here to do, and I've already kind of hit on them, right? Once a year, join your hot water heater. And by the way, for folks who are just kind of following along, I'm going to post some tips here in the show notes so that people can see this, right? Every year after the fall, clean out your gutters, or in the spring, clean out your gutters, right? Make sure you deep clean your brooms and your mops so that you're not spreading disease and germs all over your house. Keep your dryer vent clean so you don't get a fire, right? Have someone come in and vacuum that out if you need to. There's a lot of these things that you can do, and inspect your roof. I know, we're not all roofers, but get up on a ladder and just take a look. Are things lifting up? Our shingles. Look at the storm we had this past week, Todd. Did you guys have any damage at your house?
No, fortunately we did not, but I know a lot of people who did. Yes.
A lot of people did. And by the way, obviously our thoughts and our prayers are out with the folks who are really suffering here in the local area. But, you've got to pay attention. Even if you weren't damaged by that storm in the way that some folks unfortunately were, you might have a shutter that flew off the house. You might have some shingles that lifted up. So get out there and take a look at these things. It really kind of goes into the theme that Todd and I have been trying to preach kind of this entire time that we've been doing this podcast. Just be an active member in your home ownership experience, whether that's getting ready to buy and doing the proper financing, whether that's getting ready to sell and doing, the legwork there. When you're a homeowner and you're in between these two big markers of buying and selling, you got to be an active participant in keeping that home up.
Why would anybody buy something they don't want to participate in keeping it look nice, right? And the bottom line is that's why you buy within your means, right? And that's our job, is to help people buy something that they can afford to maintain, right? I think that's a part of it.
That's an excellent point, because I have those conversations with buyers. I know you do too, and they'll say, I always ask folks, and I don't know how other agents do things. Obviously, this is a big part of your world, but I try to touch on the financing too. I'll say, well, what do you guys have saved up? And they'll say, okay, this amount. Well, how much of that are you going to put towards the down payment?
Right.
And sometimes the answer to that is 100%. And I'm like, have you been a homeowner before? Because I am. And I know that sometimes a raccoon causes you $1,000 worth of damage because they got under your deck and bit into your wall, and so you need to keep some money set aside. And things like home warranties are great too, but really you got to have in your budget these annual, semi-annual home maintenance things. That's an excellent point, Todd. And that's why it's great to have a partner like you, who I know are giving that kind of advice to buyers so they can think about it.
Absolutely. Agreed.
Well, stay tuned if you're watching this podcast right now, if you're listening to it, just check down in the show notes. I'm going to have a link to a tip of home maintenance items that you got to do year in and year out, and just put it up, on your refrigerator, or put it next to the furnace, or wherever you need to have it to make sure you're hitting these things every year. Todd, thanks for your insight today. It's always a pleasure.
You are so welcome. We will see everybody next week.
We'll be here next week on The Update. Bye, guys.